Hey, how's it going, guys? So we have finally hit 1,000 subscribers, and I cannot tell you how thankful I am for each and every one of you. I, for the longest time, was wondering, how far this channel is going to go. I was just wondering, what these stories would mean, if they would mean anything to anybody other than me, because I was just, at the time, making them because I loved the stories and I loved the ideas of these concepts that I was putting on paper. But I had no clue that in making these films that they would connect with as many people as they have. In the short amount of time that this channel has been here for 5 years, but really I have only been consistently chipping away and making more stories for the past 2 years. I mean, if I'm being honest, last year in 2024, we made a film every month, and I had a release every month. The year before that, I think maybe we had 5 or 6 films total. And the whole point behind 2024 was to put as many stories out there, but still maintain the quality. And so going into 2025, I really wanted to shift more on just not necessarily the number of films and stories that I'm putting out, but the depth behind each of them that I do release. And that's why I kind of shifted my focus. I'm still doing the recolored versions of all my original slasher films that were black and white, but a lot of my focus has shifted to the Remnant storyline and the Fairhaven storyline. So, we have Finding Starlight coming up, which I can't wait for you guys to see. I just got done today making a script for the next installment in the Fairhaven story, and then I have another one that I started the script on today that I haven't finished for the continuation after that. So a lot of my focus is shifting into the story of Fairhaven and this post-apocalyptic world that I kind of created, but I'm still working on The Butcher. I'm still working on Heartland Ripper Chapter 2. The Man in the Basement will come after that. Like, I have a lot of films I'm still working on. That's just a little insight on what's going on. But the main thing I want to get across here is, like, none of this would matter if you guys weren't here to support it and here to keep showing up to watch these films and follow these characters and these stories. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate everything you guys do, all the times that you watch through those films and you interact with those films and give me feedback. It just, for those of you, because I know I've introduced myself before a long time ago, and it was like when I first came back to Illinois from California. I haven't said a lot about myself. I haven't talked a lot about me because I don't really want this channel to be about me. I want it to be about these films and these stories, but I thought about it and I thought, well, 1,000 subscribers, I at least owe you guys some kind of a background and some kind of an idea on who I am. So my name is Dalton Richardson. I was born and raised in Manitou, Illinois. I didn't even consider filmmaking or know filmmaking was even an option until I was about 22 years old. After I graduated in 2016, I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. I spent 5 years out in California. One of those years, actually, I was overseas on a deployment, came back home, and then I came back to Illinois for 3 years as a recruiter. So I spent about 8 years in the Marine Corps. My last 2 years before I left California and came back home, I started getting into modeling. I had a friend out there who she recommended I try it out. And I had never even thought about that because coming from a small town in Illinois, that's not really a thing, and so I tried it. I was like, sure, why not? I got a suit. I went out there and they did like the detective noir kind of look that they wanted me to go for, and it was fun. But then, long story short, that led to me having an interest in acting. So I did one short film. It was I think it was written and directed by Matthew Middendorf. I think it was a student film. It was called Younger Days. It's on my IMDb if you guys want to check it out. But it was my first time on a set. And when I was on there, I was just, since I was an extra, I didn't have a huge role. So I just kind of watched everybody do their thing. And it was really eye-opening to me because I was like, holy crap, this is a thing that people do, and coming from small town Illinois, that's not realistic. So I did it and I really enjoyed it, but I thought, I was like, well, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep trying it and acting. And so I kept auditioning for stuff, and I realized I really wasn't getting any auditions. And, I was like, of course at the time, I'm like, oh, I just suck, whatever. The truth is, I really didn't have an interest in the acting portion. I had a lot more of an interest in the storytelling portion. And, after I got so many refusals, or not refusals, but like, I didn't really get any interaction from my auditions and stuff, I finally decided, well, I think I could do on a lower budget what each of those people on set was doing. Like, I feel like I could do that on my own. It might take some money to hire somebody with a camera, but other than that, like, I feel like everything else should be pretty manageable. So I writ my own scripts. I wrote 3 scripts. Each of them was one project that was titled Vengeance. We filmed the first 2. It was about $6,000 between the 2 of them, the filming of them, and I realized that I had much more love for the writing and the creation of these little worlds and stories, and the directing, and then the editing and everything afterwards. Like, I enjoyed that so much more than I enjoyed being on a set and being an actor. And so from then on, I just started writing my own scripts. And from, Vengeance, I got into horror, which then I made Mr. Nobody. That was my first horror film. I had no clue what I was doing. At that point, I didn't want to hire a cinematographer because of how expensive it was. So I literally just did it myself. And if you watch that film, there are so many technical issues. Like, I can't even list them all off. Like, if you watch it, you're gonna tell the camera was all out of focus. There were so many issues with just small stuff. The costumes weren't well thought out, but it was, what I loved about it was that cast. The people I worked with for that film were so amazing. Like, just such nice people, such considerate people. And I knew, like, at the time I didn't think about it, but as I got past that point in my life, I realized, like, they knew I was inexperienced. They knew I was new at this, and they had done it for quite some time. So I was just so thankful that for a first film project of my own, that I had such an amazing cast. And I keep in touch with each of those cast members who are part of that production. I follow most of them on Instagram or Facebook, and they follow me, and it's just so cool to see from where we started to where they are now and where I am now. Like, just seeing that journey is so amazing. But to get back to the point at hand is that was my first horror film on my own, and then I did Hopper and Dolly, and again, Dolly had such an amazing cast, but because of me and the lack of technical experience, that film kind of flopped too, just because I didn't know what I was doing. I really didn't. So California was definitely a roller coaster of emotion when it came down to me filming and me learning, because it was all brand new to me and I didn't know what I was doing. Fast forward 2 years, I come back to Illinois, and I decide, like, how I thought to myself, like, coming back to Central Illinois, there's gonna be nobody who wants to be an actor. I thought, like, there's no way I'm gonna get projects done because there's gonna be nobody who's interested in that. When I came back here, when I tell you how mind blown I was at the amount of people who are into acting and directing and storytelling, like, it is a huge community and it's all over the place. I didn't realize how big it was. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm gonna do like micro budget films, like to the lowest budget I can, but still make it look good. I'm gonna do as many of these as I can in the next 3 years of being in the Marine Corps as possible. And then once I get out, we'll see where I am or whatever. And so I started doing that. A lot of the films I put out were black and white. The reason I did black and white was because I did not have any confidence in myself to edit in color. Don't ask me why I was so freaked out about that. I don't know. I really don't. But I did. The Butcher, The Man in the Basement, The Good Doctor. I think my first colored film was The Dreamer, which I really enjoyed that film. You know, Caitlin and Deacon were both great to work with. And then my first film that I consider well-rounded and colored, like my first really good film that I feel like had every aspect was pretty good, was Jackrabbit. You know, I loved The Butcher, but it was black and white, so you know I should have edited that earlier on, which I'm doing now, right? But Jackrabbit was when I first started really getting into a groove of what my process was, and by that time I think I had filmed like 5 or 6 films in Illinois since I've been home, and they were all black and white, and I was just learning, you know, one stumble after another. But the people I was working with, the actors and the actresses, they were all so great. And it was a real compliment to me, because the fact that they wanted to be a part of my films was just such a big deal to me. Because I was like, in my mind, I saw that as they believe in me. And that made me have a lot more confidence in my ability to challenge myself and force myself to do this. I wanted to make great stories and great visualizations on screen with the lowest budget possible, with practical effects, and with as little resources as I could. Like, I wanted to make these films on the lowest budget I could, but make them really convincing for the budget that it is. And it started out really rough, but as I get, more experienced and better, it's gotten so much better, and it's gotten so much more consistent now. And I know what my process is. I have my confidence in my films. Like, there's so many films that I'm making really just for me, like for me. I'm making them because these are films that I feel like when I was younger I would have enjoyed. To give you guys a little background on why I'm into this and why this is such a big thing to me is, my entire childhood, I was spending time, at home, at my grandparents, at my aunts, wherever, and I had the TV on and I was watching slasher films, 80s horror films. That's what I grew up on, 80s horror films. And it wasn't because like everybody in my family did it. It was just kind of what stuck with me. And to me, like, the 80s horror films were like the Avengers for everybody today, right? Like, that was my go-to for like comfort films and like, just the stuff I watched for fun. And then, I played a lot of video games when I was younger, so I had a lot of ideas from those as well. It was just, I can remember being, oh man, like 8 years old at my great grandmother's house, and she had this big, just giant TV in her living room that was like the size of the wall. It was huge, like nobody could move it. It was so big, and we would crank that thing on, and I would be watching Conan the Barbarian. I'd be watching, what was that one with Sylvester Stallone? Like, was it Cobra, I think? Rambo, all those 80s action flicks, Die Hard. I loved watching every one of those on repeat, like over and over again. So when I tell you that I was so inspired by the 80s films, and to this day, I will take any 80s film over modern day films that are released, just because I think they're more original and they're a lot lower budget. And I think they're more real. Like, a lot of the effects are practical. It's not all the CGI and everything. And so when I was looking at my films and thinking how I wanted to create my films and tell my stories, I wanted to be able to do it on a low budget and kind of replicate that process of making a really well-rounded, practical film and story for people to connect with. And you'll see a lot of my horror films aren't really scary or horror films. They have a hint of comedy in them, and that's kind of following in that whole like 80s horror film interest, is a lot of those films I would watch them and I would just shake my head and be like, this is so stupid, but they were so good. Like, I would watch them over and over again just because they're a fun time. It's like a roller coaster. You don't know what you're gonna get till you jump on it, and there's some unexpected turns and twists and stuff, and that's how I look at the films that I watch and creating these short films that I create. So we're coming up on 15 minutes here. I'm not gonna keep going into everything in my life, right, and tell you more about me. I think I've done a pretty good job at giving you an idea of what makes me tick and why I do this. I'll just end with, to reiterate, I'm so thankful for you guys and for everything that you continue to show up and support me with, especially for my audience, but also all the actors that I've worked with, all the cinematographers I've worked with, all the amazing people in the film industry I've worked with. This channel, I could not be what I am, or this channel couldn't be what it is without you guys and working on these projects with me and helping me bring them to life. And to the audience, you guys are who continue to show up and support them and continue to watch them and interact with the channel. And I am so thankful that you guys are in my life and that I had the opportunity to do this. Like, you guys are making my dreams come true. So I have several films coming up. Like I said before, I'm not planning on doing a release every single month, but I can make you a promise that the quality is going to be far better than what you've been used to. There are some things that are going to be a lot like my other films, but the reason I'm slowing down and taking more time to perfect the films is because I want them to be the best they can be before they're just released to you. And I want the stories to be exactly what they should be. I just want the best quality to be getting to you guys instead of just focusing on sending stuff out to you every single month. So I'm gonna get as many of these films as I can out to you in a short amount of time. I'm working on The Butcher, editing it right now. We are filming Finding Starlight in 2 weeks. So that one's gonna be edited probably very quickly, knowing my interest in the Fairhaven story that I'm creating. Like, that's going to be my primary focus. And then I'm gonna jump right into the next installment and the next installment. And I have a lot of ideas for those characters and for that story, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. So again, 1,000 subscribers, thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next video.